Hello.
What's up, Mike?
What's up, Hoppy?
We are actually recording. So like 5 years ago, I would have waited for like an official like opening intro where I would read off of a script. But now I just begin to show randomly. So what's going on, Mike Calta? You are on Hoppe Hour.
I'm glad you know that I've never listened to the show, so I wouldn't know what you did now or 5 years ago.
I want to ask you about that because I don't want to make it about me because I'm interviewing you, but I feel like you don't listen to my work because it would like ruin our friendship. I feel like it's kind of like a family member that doesn't want to hear what their nephew's doing. I kind of feel like it's the same way with my podcast. It's weird.
It's true. If I listened and talked about it, what a chronic masturbator you were, I would never be able to shake your hand again. I assure you of that.
Yeah, it's very weird. I was talking to a few people about this the other day. It's very unhealthy. I don't know if you have this with your life, but how much like my mom knows about me. Like if I were to have known everything that she knows about me, but it be coming from her on the radio, I would not listen. It's very weird.
Yeah, you don't want to hear about that stuff. I would imagine if it would put it in reverse. Imagine if we were listening to a show hosted by your mother, and your mother was talking about getting laid all the time and trying drugs and drinking. You'd be like, wow, that person's really fucked. I curse?
Yeah, you can say whatever the fuck you want.
Oh, all right. So you'd be like, wow, that person's really fucked up. Then you realize that's probably what's happening when your mom listens to your show. She wants to be so proud of you because you're doing radio and you're doing all that stuff and you have your own show. But at the same time, she's listening to you talk about, all the stuff all the private stuff in your life, because radio people don't have the capability of keeping things private. We have to talk about everything.
Yeah, because radio people often try to like have a private life, but I feel like that doesn't work out in the long run. Like you can keep kind of a private life, but you kind of have to also talk because you don't want to be a fake person.
Howard Stern taught everybody that the key to success was being honest with your audience. And as a result of that, everybody has tried to be honest. And the more honest people are the ones that people appreciate more, except sometimes you realize after a while you can't control it anymore and you just start babbling away.
When do you think you became really good at radio? Because you've been doing it for like 30 years now. Do you think it was when you first began like 14 years ago on The Bone? When do you think you really began to hit your groove as a radio host?
I don't know. I'm not being humble. I don't know. I really feel like I'm lucky. I feel like I was in the right place at the right time, and I do a pretty good job. Like that's what I think. Like I think if I was an accountant or if I was a garbage man, I would still do a pretty good job no matter what I did. And fortunately, I've had a lot of success doing it. But I think when I was on Bubba's show in the early years, I was good. I was a good asset to that show. I think I was terrible when I did sports radio and when I did country radio. And then I think after a while, you kind of find your own groove and you do things the way you want to do it. And if it starts to become, if people listen to it, you're like, oh, I don't know, maybe I'm kind of good at this. But I never, ever feel like I'm super good at this. I just feel like I'm lucky.
Well, what I think you do a really good job of is making your own brand and commanding respect, as Mike O says you do. Like, you're not known for working with Bubba in the 90s. You're known as Mike Calta. You're known as Cowhead from the Cowhead Show back 10 years ago. That's what I think you've done an excellent job at, is separating yourself from him.
Well, you don't want to be tied to somebody else's success for the rest of your life. And I did get a great break by being on that show because the show was very popular. But then I realized after a while that I needed to break free if I ever wanted to be more successful than I was there. And fortunately, I knew eventually it was going to come to a head. Either I would get another job somewhere bigger and I'd leave, or I'd get fired. And I got fired first. But, I knew it was coming. So it wasn't a bad thing. And then I knew I was able at that point to start working on what I've always wanted to do, and that was to do my own show.
So I heard you say on air, this may have been a year ago, I don't remember, but you were talking about when you got a one share and you were doing well at the AM sports radio, that you and your wife got a cake about the one share. Is it crazy to look back on that 15 years ago and realize that's what you thought was doing good back in like 2005? Well,
it's funny because I don't think it was a one share, but it was definitely we were like, I think in fourth place. I think we were in fourth place men 18 to 34, which is ridiculous because that's like a no money slot. But that station had never been in the top 5 for anything, so that's why my wife made me a cake. And then the next cake she made me was when I got a 20 share with men. And just it's funny you bring that up because the ratings came out today, and I got a 19.6 share with men. And I looked at that and I was like, fuck, man, I was 4/10 away from a cake. So I missed those cake days.
So I've had a few listeners ask me about it, and I just want to ask you because I don't really have an answer to it. Is there any talk like about MJ coming back to town? Like, are you nervous at all because he was a big name back in the day, or are you just pretty happy with your 19 share and just keeping on going?
No, I mean, look, I'm not nervous about anything. I believe this market's saturated with, talented people. Some who have been here for a long time. Some of the new guys that just got here. I mean, you're always going to be aware of your competition, but I'm not nervous about anything. And most people like to shit on MJ, but MJ was dominant in this market for a long time. He had huge success in the business. And, I'm not worried because I also feel like we do 2 different types of radio and we attract 2 different audiences. And there's plenty of people here for everybody to survive, but no, I'm not nervous at all.
What, if a person were to ask you about your show and ask what your audience is like, how would you explain to your how would you explain to that person what your audience is like?
I gotta tell you, first of all, before I answer that question, I'm very proud of you that you're so prepared for this interview.
I literally don't have any prep. I've just been thinking about this all day long, and I've gotten better at it. This is better than when we did that interview. We did 2 rounds of it, and it was the same crap when we were recording at work, and the dove was playing over it. Man, you were very patient with me.
I did want to choke you to death, though. Wait, I forgot the question now. What was the question?
If you were to explain to a person that hasn't heard your show what your audience is like, what would you say your audience is like?
I don't know. I mean, in my head, I would think that at one point they were beer drinking, college kids. But then I go out there and I meet them, and they're older dudes and women and black guys and black girls and Hispanic guys. There's no screenshot of what the audience looks like. The one thing I'm most proud of about the show is that nobody ever expected us to have women listening to the show. I think because we were a little dirty in the beginning, they all thought that guys would come and women would leave. And that was a good thing for the company because the women could go to 97X or to Magic or the other stations, but we would get the guys. Then all of a sudden we started getting calls from women all the time. And I think it was because, even though we did jokes and we made fun of everybody and all that, but we were respectful to women and we genuinely wanted them to listen to the show. And I think that they could tell, and women started to like the show. And now we got a huge women audience, and I'm really proud of that because nobody ever expected that to happen.
What do you think was the one thing you guys changed that brought in more women listeners?
Everybody wants to call me a shock jock, and it's such a horrible term. They say shock jock because I guess some of the things that we did were shocking. I don't know what that was. I will go on record as saying I don't think we've ever done anything shocking. Everything Howard did was shocking. Everything Opie and Anthony did was shocking, and that was because nobody had ever done it before. By the time we started doing stunts, we were just trying to do something that hadn't been done before, but we didn't get dirty. We didn't get over the top. We didn't kill anybody. We just tried to have fun, and it came across as fun. And I think that women driving home from work want to have fun just as much as men driving home from work or going to work, whatever slot we were on. And, also I knew that women were out there, so I catered to them a little bit. Like when we had tickets to give away for a country concert or a top 40 concert, I knew if there was a guy that didn't want them, there would be a woman that would want them. And I think that may have brought women over in the beginning to listen to the show, and then the show itself kept them to stick around, which I think was great.
Speaking of games that you guys play, I've had listeners think that Sporkle is fake, and I can say, because I've been there, Sporkle is not fake. Why do you think a person would assume that Sporkle is fake?
I don't know. I've never heard that before. I can tell you that Sporkle, for those of you who don't know, it's an online game. It's an app. It's just a trivia thing that the trivia question is submitted, I think, by listeners or by viewers or whatever. And years ago, we started playing on the air just to see who was smarter than each other in the room. Then it turned into, once a week, once a day, I don't know. And then we buried it at 6:30 in the morning because we wanted to get it out of the way, and because people liked it, but we didn't want to have to do it all the time. And so we buried it at 6:30, and now it's become like a staple of the show. Like, it's a show starter. We play it early in the morning, and then we fight with each other over it, and there's strict, big time competition. I don't know why are people saying it's fake? What's fake about it?
Well, I've just had people ask, like, if you guys have the answers and one person chooses to win that day, sort of like the fake prank call version of The Bone, I guess. I don't know.
Oh, no. I can tell you that if it was fake, there's no fucking way I'd let Galvin beat me as many times as he's beaten me since the quarantine. The year totals would be dominant. Galvin would have like 79 wins, and I'd have like 132. Like, I would be just behind doubling him every year. And this year he's beating me, and it's pissed me off. The only thing that makes me want to get back in the studio is the fact that I'm losing in Sporkle because I have a little bit of a delay, so he's a hair ahead of me and it's making him win. No, it's definitely not fake, and I'm to the point where when we're back in the studio, I'm willing to put money down on it just to show him that I'm smarter than he is.
What is your relationship like with Galvin?
It's great, I think. Probably one of the better relationships I have in my life because he doesn't need shit from me. We talk for 4 hours every day, then hardly talk after that. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, like, we text a lot, but we hardly get on the phone. The only time we get on the phone is if something's wrong or if we want to discuss something, an idea about work or something. But other than that, we are just like casual friends, but also really tight at the same time. I don't know if that makes sense. I mean, we were with each other for 20 hours a week, and I think on the weekends we don't spend any time together so that we could not get sick of each other. But at the same time, every once in a while he'll come over to my house or we'll have a dinner or something like that. But we do have a great relationship. And the entire time we worked together, we've had 4 fights, and all of those fights have lasted through.
Galvin does a really good job of being your co-host. Like, he never tries to like talk over you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because look, here's the thing. This is the chemistry that works there. Galvin is the funniest person I've ever met, like non-comedian person. He's the funniest radio guy. He's also the meanest guy at the same time. He's the quickest, and he makes me laugh every day. And I am not insecure, so I want him to be as funny as he can be every day. He just makes the show better. He doesn't make me look bad. He makes the show look better. So I don't mind that everybody goes, man, that Mike Calta show is great because Galvin's so funny. That's a compliment to the whole show, and that's what I want. And at the same time, Galvin has no interest in being the host of the show. He's happy just being the funny guy. So neither one of us, we're both so happy in our roles that's why it works out really well.
Do you think everybody right now is bringing enough to the show, or is there a person that's lacking?
I have a feeling that you feel like somebody's lacking.
Oh, no, I don't. I'm just doing a Mike Calta impersonation where I ask really tough things, because that's what every time I've observed you ask really intense things. I'm just asking you.
Yeah. See, the problem, though, with that is I don't care. I'll say it. I honestly think everybody could bring more to the show. And there are times where we all get lazy, including me. And I think that we can all do more to keep the important thing is you don't want to get the show boring. You don't want to play redneck bingo every day. You don't want to do the same shit every day other than your normal benchmarks. And I think everybody should be coming to the table with ideas to make the show better. Galvin is the best at that. He brings the most ideas to the table. He brings the production to the table. He does most of that. And Gio brings guests to the show. And, Joe does the TV stuff. And Spanish really produces the show, keeps it all together. And Carmen is just so naturally Carmen that she's just her being her every day, whether you love her or hate her, never changes. She brings herself to the show. I know it's hard to explain if you've never heard her before, but sometimes she's dumb, sometimes she's smart. All the time it's real. So if the one day she comes to work and she's going to cry that day, or if she's going to come to work and talk about how she's so much better than us about stuff, we never know what to expect from her. So she's perfect the way she is. But we could all do more, including me.
What is your favorite Carmen memory?
My favorite what?
Carmen memory over the years, if it's her getting drunk on a cruise or her going crazy on the show, what's like the one memory of Carmen that comes to your mind?
Oh, man, there's so many. I mean, Carmen's butthole tattoo is probably one of the best things that she's ever done, not just because we got to see her butthole, but because it's known everywhere. I mean, every comedian that comes in, every celebrity is like, which one of these girls has the butthole tattoo? You know, it's been one of the best things she's ever done for the show.
Yeah, she's very open on the show, too. I feel like a lot of people look down on her because she's very open, but I feel like that's what makes her, and that's why she fits in so well on your show.
Yeah, it's funny when you say that is because people look down and people call her stupid, or I love when guys are like, oh, she'd be pretty hot if she didn't bang black guys. People have actually said that to her on Twitter or on social media. And the funny thing is that she wouldn't talk to half these guys who are insulting her, and she's having the best life. She's 20-something years old. She makes great money. She's also got a college degree. She's having a fun job every day. She eats tacos when the fuck she wants. She's got the best life, so she doesn't give a shit what you think about her. So
I get a lot of hate from the Bone listeners. I also get a lot of love. People like Drew can bring in that factor where there's a lot of haters, but they listen, a lot of lovers, and they listen to Drew. Now, you're the main guy at the Bone, so you're the main figure at the Bone. So I feel like you get more love than hate, but do you just get a lot of mean messages as well? Because most of your social media comments are you saying that your show is great, but are there a lot of people that will message you that are very vicious towards Mike Calta?
No, I mean, I'll be honest, when the whole when Bubba was around and all his jerk-off fans would attack me, that's when most of the hate would happen. But even a lot of those guys are now fans of the show. They listen to the show all the time. They were just caught in the middle of that war, and they felt like they had to pick a side. But I get so many of those guys that go, oh, I was so embarrassed. I used to have a Bubba Army sticker on my car, and now I listen to you guys every day. I don't care. I mean, I get it. I've had guys come up to me and say, you know, I'm sorry you blocked me on Twitter and I said some dumb shit. And I go, I don't care. As long as you didn't insult my kids, or you could even insult my kids because you don't know them, but as long as you didn't put pictures of my kids up or do something that's unforgivable, I don't give a shit what you said about me. I'm in that job. I'm used to this shit. So, I don't really get a lot of hate now. I had a argument with a woman earlier today. I was kind of half joking, but she said to me she was very disappointed because she thinks I voted for Trump. She doesn't know the truth, but she goes, I'm very disappointed to find out you're a Trump guy. And I wrote back, that's cool because I don't give a shit what you voted for or what you think, Karen. And she wrote back, oh, Karen, you didn't have to insult me. I was like, oh, relax. Just busting your balls. When people say things like that to me, that annoys me the most. I'm disappointed in you. Fuck you. You don't know me. You don't know anything about me. You know about a guy who's on the radio. Be disappointed about. Do you like my radio show? Is it funny getting you to work? That should be all you care about.
Now, do your kids listen to your show, or is it a little too raunchy?
No, I don't. I don't think it's raunchy at all. I mean, there are times I'll make specific jokes just to be funny, but I don't think it's raunchy. But my son's 14. He doesn't want to listen. He may listen for the 5 minutes it takes him to get to school in the morning, but I don't really think he gives a shit about it yet. My daughter loves hearing me on the radio. She's the raunchy one. That kid's got a mouth on her. So I always tell everybody, my dad took me to the movie theater to see Porky's in the 80s when it was in the theater. I don't even know do you even know what Porky's is?
I know what it is. I just have not seen it.
You should watch that movie, Hoppe. That's a funny fucking movie. And it came out in the 80s, and it's all about it's a teenage sex movie where, it's all about seeing boobs and getting laid. And it's a typical 80s high school movie. And my dad took us to see it in the theater. And I tell people that because I don't do drugs. I've never been arrested. I've been successful. It just goes to show you that seeing titties and hearing curse words when you're a kid does not produce a bad human being.
Well, I think there's this weird thing that parents do. I'm not a parent, so I can't really say, but it seems like for me growing up, my dad was so against me watching Family Guy and so against me listening to Opie and Anthony and Howard, and it almost made me rebel more where I wanted to listen or watch because my dad didn't want me to. And I feel like if or when I'm a parent, I'm going to let my kids watch pretty much what they want, because then it'll be lame that dad wants to watch it and then they're not going to want to watch it. Because if you keep putting up a fight against watching Peter Griffin, the kid's going to want to watch it.
So when I was a kid, my mom and dad died of diabetes when she was really young, and my mom never wanted us to have diabetes because it was in our family. So when we were kids, we could never have sugar cereals like everybody else is eating, like all the good Frosted Flakes and all that shit. And we had to eat like puffed rice from a bag. We had the worst shit cereal, and we never had candy in the house or any of that stuff, and it sucked because when you're a kid, those are the things you want. And yet we still grow up to be fat. And my kids, it's like goddamn Willy Wonka in here. We have candy left over from Halloween 2 years ago. We have I have 3 jars of candy in my kitchen that they never touch. It's around them all the time, and I got 2 of the skinniest little kids you'll ever see. It's a matter of if you take it away from them and tell them they can't have it, they're going to want it even more. And when you tell them it's there, try it and see what you think of it. Then they try it, and they're like, I don't need it all the time. I don't know. Why was your dad against Family Guy?
He was really religious, so he didn't like that they made fun of Jesus, and he thought it was offensive. But also, my dad used to record every single episode of Married with Children in the 80s, and like 15 years ago, I found all the VHSs in our attic, and I began watching it when he would go to bed. And I'll never forget, one time he walked in and he saw me watching it, and he like freaked out that I found the tapes, and then he threw them out. So there was this whole thing growing up where I just wanted to rebel and watch every Adult Swim show or South Park or whatever just because he didn't want to. And now I don't really like Family Guy. I don't think it's that funny.
But he was watching Married with Children like when nobody was around?
Yeah, when it was first on in like the 80s and 90s. He would tape it on VHS.
Because it was hilarious, and he wanted to watch it, but he felt guilty because he was religious. He felt like he was doing something wrong.
Yeah, that, I mean, God bless his heart, but there's a lot of daddy issues that come from that, but that's just a whole nother topic, so. It's very weird, Mike.
You still have dad issues, you think?
I'm getting better with the seeking approval of you and Olivero and Galvin, but there's definitely a little bit of that left where like last Monday when we were doing the rock and roll segment and I was playing a few of the wrong songs or playing songs that you didn't want me to. And like you guys are just making fun of me. And then like Galvin had to send me a text in the afternoon because he could probably feel that I felt bad. And Spanish said everything was okay. It was definitely like some of it lingers where like I need approval and I can't take a joke. So that's something I'm working on is like not being so uptight. Because Ben Swig had a talk with me about that on Miggs and Swig on Saturday about like kind of like relaxing.
Yeah, you listen. If it's one thing I can tell you, and I think I could speak for Galvin, especially Galvin. If Galvin's mad at you, you'll fucking know it. If you screwed something up and he's pissed off at you, you'll have no doubt in your mind that he's pissed off. If I'm pissed off at you on the air, you can almost guarantee I'm not really that mad. Like if you fuck something up, I'm gonna yell at you on the air because I'm in the moment, and it's also funnier to yell at you than it is to just go, "I know we do." But the truth is that very little shit bothers me, especially something like that. Because when I run the board, I fuck the board up every day. Every day after doing this for 30 years, I still screw it up. So I can get mad at somebody else for making a dumb mistake. But who cares?
I think the one time you were really mad at me was when I went up to Chicago during Irma and I missed your cruise, and you were sorry, I'm recording this off my phone. Sorry about that sound effect. You were like, "Oh yeah, she looks really sick, Hoppe. Fuck you," or something. I forget what you said. You may not have said "fuck you," but I forget how you worded it. But you pretty much said "don't talk to me," and then you like unfriended me on social media. It was the most Mike Calta thing ever. It was hilarious.
That pissed me off because I went to Cox and I said, like, when I first was in radio and I had no money and I was trying to find my way, I always wanted to be included in stuff and I always wanted to do stuff, but I knew I didn't have any money to go, and it wasn't my job to be there. And I wanted somebody to, I wanted to walk in and say, "Hey, Hoppe, we should take care of Hoppe. He should go. He does a lot for the show. He does a lot for the station." And then I did that, and then you were like, "Fuck you, I'm taking Friday to Chicago."
Man, I'll never forget. I was sitting in the living room of the house I grew up in, and it said that you sent me a Snapchat, and I'm like, "Oh, you're probably just saying I hope you have a safe trip or whatever." And it was like the most Mike Calta message ever. And I remember I was like, "Oh, I probably made a wrong decision," but I was in denial. So then I was like, "Oh, he's being mean." And then like 10 months later, I was like, oh, I get where Mike was coming from.
Yeah, I mean, that also comes with being young, and I'm not the kind of guy who's like going to be, like, fuck him, he screwed up, I'm never going to talk to him again. I also tend to, stuff like that, I tend to blow off after a couple of months. Don't get me wrong, there's people in my life who have fucked me over. I don't consider that fucking me over. You just didn't do anything for yourself. But there are people who fucked me over or betrayed me or talked shit about me after, for one reason or another. And those people will always have a mental mark. I'll never forget them. Even if we're in the same building or we work for the same company or something, I will never forget what they did to me. But that's very rare. You know what I mean? Most of the time I just get over shit in a couple of weeks. But, there's a couple of people who if I was never anything but good to you and you turned against me, I'll remember that. And one day you'll come back to me and you'll need something and I'll tell you to fuck off.
Now, do you ever think about the legacy you're leaving on Tampa radio?
Never. I feel uncomfortable when you even say something like that. And I don't mean it from a humble point of view at all. When you were saying the other day that I was the king of Tampa radio, I want to vomit when I hear that. I don't believe that whatsoever. I feel like this job is good for a while, and there'll be a time where it's probably not so good. And I've had a fortunate run of things being good, but I don't consider myself. I don't think in my mind, when the show is over, and 10 years after it's over, hopefully there'll be a couple of people who'll be like, "Oh, remember that show?" That's all I care about. I don't care about a legacy or any of that bullshit.
Is that from life humbling you, or were you like that the whole time?
Wait, say it again? You broke up.
Would you say that attitude of being humble has been you the whole time, or did life humble you?
No. I'm sure I've learned lessons over the years. There were times I probably thought I was the king of radio, and but I know the reality of it. I know how lucky people are to have jobs these days. I know how lucky we are to have success, and that success isn't always going to be here. So I would say I was definitely humbled over the years.
Now, Mike, for people that have not, wait, first, before I close the show, I wanted to ask you this. Are you going to ever write a book?
No, I don't. I mean, here's the thing is I tell stories every day on the radio and on podcasts, and, there's more entertaining ways than writing a book. I feel like people who write books are, if you're Howard had 3 books in them, and, those first 2 books are filled with stories that were, I didn't read the third one yet. So, but those first 2 books are filled with the greatest stories, and, all these guys in radio that wrote books. It's like Bankow wrote a book. Who gives a fuck about that guy, except for him? They're ego projects. I'm going to write a book about myself. Why? Who gives a shit about you? If somebody didn't write a book about you first, nobody gives a shit. But you just have to write a book about yourself.
Plus, you don't ever want to have the thing where you can buy your book originally for $18.99 and then you can buy it for like 99 cents on Amazon or on eBay. You never want to reach that level of not being relevant.
If I did write a book, like if I felt like I do feel like I have good stories. If I did write a book, or if I talked them into a show and did like a vlog or something, I'd be fine just giving them away for 99 cents or for $1 or whatever, for free or whatever it is. I'd be much rather be like, hey, story time with Mike on a podcast, than I would be like, to read this book about what it was like to be a poor kid in Staten Island. So, I would be like, who gives a fuck about this guy's life? We all got problems.
Now, Mike, for people that have not heard your show yet, how can they listen to the Mike Calta show?
Who cares? If you haven't found it yet, then you're probably listening to something else. Don't start listening now.
Wow, I like that attitude. Mike Calta, thank you for coming on Hoppe Hour. Oh,
Hoppe, this was way less painful than I thought it was going to be.
Thank you. I know you're going to go on air and say that it was pretty average tomorrow morning, and I am completely fine with that.
No, all right. So I'll say it officially here first before I say it on the air. I said before that you were very prepared for the show, and you said that you didn't have anything prepared, which to me means even more, because that shows how far you've come, that you could just sit down and do an interview on the fly just about the things that are in your head.
Yeah, it comes from listening to you and Howard, because I feel like when you come with too much prep, you're focusing on the prep and you're not having a conversation with somebody.
That's the absolute truth. When you're talking to somebody and you say, what was your childhood like? And they say, well, I used to be an ice cream man when I was a kid. And you're like, hold on, I got a fucking question. Tom Arnold was an ice cream man? And then you start thinking about that, and that's where your head should go. It should be like, great, after ice cream man, what did you do? You should be prepared to talk about what they just fucking said to you.
How often do you listen to some of those like radio interviews that are like 7 minutes long if you just hear it randomly and you're like, man, why aren't they just being human?
I don't listen to a lot of anything. I used to listen to Howard religiously, and it's not my thing anymore. I don't listen very much. I don't really listen to a lot of stuff now. I don't even listen to, I know how talented Joe Rogan is, but I don't listen to Joe Rogan. I mean, a lot of my friends have podcasts. I don't listen to any of that stuff. I just don't have a lot of time. When you have kids, you run out of time real quick.
What was the one moment when you first noticed that you didn't have as much time when you first had, or when Amanda first had Joey? Was there like a moment where you saw that time was just not as available?
So when my wife first had my first son, I kind of felt like, well, your job is to take care of the kid and my job is to work. So I can go spend as much time as I want to at work because it's her job to take care of the kid. And then I realized quickly that it's not her job. We're both parents, and not only should I be doing some of this stuff, but I should want to do it. And then as my son got older, all I wanted to do was spend time with him. So I started to want to do less like weekend trips and, pitbull toddler shows and shit like that, and more time to stay home and hang out with him, especially as he got older. So, you realize those things as you mature. Now with my other kid, with my daughter, all I want to do is hang out with her. She's the most fun thing ever. So,
how was your time with your son at the Bucks game?
It was great. I mean, look, the Bartolers were nice enough to give me tickets to their suite, and it was a game, where you had Tom Brady going against Aaron Rodgers. So to take my son to his first Bucks game at a 50-yard line suite that was fully catered in air conditioning and watch two of the greatest quarterbacks ever play each other. I mean, those kind of moments last forever. So it was a great opportunity.
I want to ask you too, because you've been in Tampa radio for so long. What is it about the Rays that is so hateable, the front office, and I'm rooting for the team. It'd be cool if they won. But what is it that the Rays have done wrong where there's that huge disconnect with the Rays and all of Tampa Bay?
I feel the same way, by the way. I do hope they win. Good for them, and it's a good representation of Tampa, and certainly with the Lightning winning, it'll be great for Tampa Bay. But we really tried to become Rays fans, in 2007, 2008. And I'm talking about like when I first got to the Bone, because I did an endorsement for the Rays when I worked for Clear Channel, and they were the home of the Rays, and so everybody over there was all Rays. And then when I went to the Bone, I didn't do the endorsement, but I was still a supporter of the team, and we gave away tickets. And I used to always want to get players on the air, and they would never give us any players out on the air. It's a long story, but we had a run in with them about bringing players. Like they brought Clear Channel all the great, infield players, and then they brought us all like backup pitchers, and we were like, what the fuck is this? It started then. And then the whole thing with the stadium and threatening to move, and they were going to leave, and they don't want to move the stadium to an area where people can actually get to the games and go to the games. They want to leave it in St. Pete because they don't want to pay for a new stadium. Management doesn't want to pay for anything, so they would rather entertain the idea of moving it to another city than they would actually putting some money and investing into it, like Jeff Minnick did with the Lightning, like George Steinbrenner has done with the Yankees and the Tampa Yankees. I mean, they have to give a little bit back to the city, and they haven't done that. And really, they haven't wanted to partner with the city and the fans of the Rays. So fuck you, then you're on your own. Then when you're in the World Series and only a quarter of the town really gives a shit about you, that's what you get.
Yeah, I just think it's so weird. I live like 4 to 5 minutes from the Trop, and when I tell you that there's no excitement in the neighborhood and there are no raise up signs, it is very bizarre.
No, it's especially when you come from Chicago And, the town has been so crazy for a team that have been losers for so long with the Cubs. And, the idea that when they became winners, it was such a big deal because you guys have supported a losing team for so long. And to have another team across town that also is successful, it must be hard for you to believe it when you come here to know that there's a stadium and a team, and the team's in the World Series, and most people don't give a shit. But at the same time, when you look at the Lightning, who, are playing 20,000 people every time they play at home, and, same thing, young team, newer guys, but the management has invested, into the city, has built up around the organization, cares about the people that go to the games. They build up the area around the stadium, and that's what you want in an owner. That's why you support them, because he gives back. It's a big difference.
What was it like when the Buccaneers won 17 years ago?
It was the greatest thing ever, because I had been a Bucs fan since I moved here in 1989, and they were shitty, and it was fun to have just them be a shitty team every year. You knew they were going to lose, they were going to suck, and then when guys like Sapp and Brooks and all them started coming in and making the team great, it was fun to watch them build up, and the coaches switch and the quarterback switch, and the next thing you know, we got the best defense in the league. It was a great story. It was great to watch them win. They definitely deserved it.
Well, Mike, it's been a lot of fun having you on the show. I appreciate you giving me.
Would you say it was fun?
Yes, of course.
I don't feel like you had fun.
No,
I feel like it was informative, but I don't feel like it was fun.
No, you got to remember. I'm not recording in like a professional room. I'm in my small apartment that is getting renovated. So it looks better than it has the last 5 years, but it's dark in here. I have this little lamp light that's over my Rodecaster board, and my cat's licking herself, and my sex offender neighbor is yelling outside. So it's very weird to be talking to a major market radio person, and then I'm here in my apartment. Like it's chaos in this place. You know what I'm saying? Even though it's.
Can I give you a piece of advice?
What's going on?
Can I give you a real piece of advice?
What's going on?
Or a real piece of advice. Okay?
I'm listening.
If you said to me, what's that guy's name from California that you like? The radio guy?
Woody. Right?
You know what I'm talking about? What's the guy from California, the radio guy that you like?
Are you saying Woody, the Woody Show?
Yeah, Woody. If you were like, next week on the Hoppe Hour, I got Woody, I'd be like, I don't give a shit. But if you said to me next week on Hoppe Hour, I went and interviewed my sex offender neighbor, I would listen to that shit in a second.
Dude,
in a second.
I might have to do that.
If you went and you were like, knock, knock, hey, Roy, it's Hoppe from next door. Would you mind if I changed your name and did an interview with you about being a sex offender? I would listen to that in a fucking second. In fact, I promise you, if you do that, I'll replay segments of it on my show.
I might do that. I might say, like,
right.
They're freaky. No, you like, Mike, you think it's cool to, like, it's weird. Like, they'll, like, wave at my car and that. Like, they're legit, like, out of their mind, man. It's freaky.
Yeah, well, I don't understand why you live there.
It's because it's cheap rent, man. Come on now. Beginning in radio.
You can't live in the slums. You have to start thinking bigger.
I know.
Pete and I, when Pete and I were dirt poor, we lived in an apartment building that Elo Knievel lived in our building, Suzanne Summers lived in our building, two guys from the Rays lived in our building. I mean, that's where you got to put your head. You got to put your head. And I lived with Pete, so we split the rent, so it was cheaper. You need to find a good, solid roommate and live with that guy or girl.
Sounds like a plan. I'll definitely have to figure that out. I'll try to interview my sex offender neighbors, and I say neighbors with an S. There's a lot of them, so it's a lot of opportunities.
I will never listen to this show, not even the one that I was on, but I will listen to it if you get your sex offender neighbors on. I
might have to do that, Mike Calta. I might have to.
You should, if there's multiple ones, you should interview each one of your sex offender neighbors. Hey, are there any women? You got any women sex offenders?
No, dude. These are like the scum of the earth looking. Like, they're like freaky.
Are they like child molesters or rapists? Or are they just like guys who jerk off in the park?
No, it's the scum of the earth. This is not jerking off at a park. This is like scum.
All right. Well, I would still listen to that. I want to hear that.
On that note, Mike Calta, thank you for coming on the show, man, and giving me 40 minutes of your time. It's been an honor, as I used to say.
Happy. It has not been painful, I will tell you that.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you for everything, Mike Calta.
All right, pal. Good luck to you.
All right. See you, man.
See ya.
And that was Mike Calta, who just called into Happy Hour. Now, if you're listening and this is the first time you've heard my show, all you got to do is go to every single podcasting app and search up Hoppe Radio, Hoppe Radio, literally every app, and then you can listen to Happy Hour.
Hoppe. This is Happy Hour.